We're playing high-low, talking about expectations for the 2025 Buccaneers, that and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at EKlosky WTSP. We are your credentialed members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, Evan is on 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. And I am here with you at least 3 days a week for the month of June, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. We are going to have ourselves some fun on this episode of Locked On Bucs, where Evan and I are going to play a little game that I'm calling high-low. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Evan list the top 3 Buccaneers that he's high on for this season, whether it's a breakout year building off of a successful 2024, a rookie that he thinks is going to be someone that comes on strong and helps takes the Bucs to another level. Whatever his reasoning is, these are the players that you should be excited about for this season. On the flip side, there are 3 players that Evan will list that he has some concerns about. Again, could be for any reason. Might be in danger of losing his starting job. They could be in line for a regression from last season. Could be that Evan just doesn't believe that they are the ones that are able to help take the Bucs to the next step or up to the next level. Again, whatever his reasons are, these are the players that we're kind of cautioning you not to get too excited or have too high of hopes for this season. So, Evan, let's start at the top with your number 1 player that you are high on for 2025.
Number 1 player, and by the way, for this exercise, there are a lot of players I'm high on. I don't think anybody out there wants me to list off why I'm high on Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, right? So I wanted to kind of give you the guys that I'm high on that maybe are not first of mind. And number 1 is Yaya Diaby. And the reason why I'm high on Yaya Diaby is because I'm high on Hassan Reddick. And Hassan Reddick, Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea, and Yaya are maybe one of the more underrated D-lines in the league. I think they're one of the best D-lines in the league, and I think they're going to show that this season. Yaya's pressure numbers have been fantastic. Last year, 2 years ago, his sack numbers were a bit inflated by some fortunate breaks. And not to say that his pressure numbers didn't look good then, but just the execution of those sacks. Like, there was a game he played against San Francisco, and I believe Brock Purdy just kind of fell on the ground in front of him. So there were some things that fell in his favor 2 years ago that didn't necessarily fall in his favor last year. And that was to be expected, but the pressure numbers were great. The only problem was he is probably better suited to be Robin versus Batman. And that's nothing against Yaya. I think he can be Batman one day, but it was his second year in the league. He's still learning and growing. And I think with Hassan on the other side of him, and you have to pay your respects to Kalijah and Vita, like, what are you going to do with Yaya? You're going to have to give up something. You can only do so much if you're an offense. And I think Yaya is going to benefit the most by Hassan Reddick getting extra eyeballs on him. So I believe that Yaya is ready to take the next step. And I think that's because Jason Light has helped him a little bit in getting some help on the front. and we'll kind of go from there. But I'm expecting Diaby to have a big season, and I could see 8 to 9 sacks. I'm sure for him, he's got double digits on his mind, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got around that 8 to 9 mark and really surprise some people.
Well, and to your point, this is a guy that had 7.5 as a rookie, right? He wasn't one of the main pass rushers. He was kind of a rotational guy, and he gets to that point. So there was a lot of double-digit hype around him last year. I remember Albert Breer was gushing over Yaya Diaby. We all had high expectations. So for him to have the sack numbers that he had last year, we're all still high on the ability and the talent. It's a matter of, is that going to translate to the number? So yeah, I mean, I would certainly expect Yaya to have a big bounce back season, and the addition of Hassan Reddick is certainly going to help matters along if Hassan is, even half the player that a lot of people expect him to be. So I like that one a lot. And kudos to you for not taking the easy way out. Like you said at the top, you're not going to explain why you're high on Mike Evans or Baker or those kinds of guys. So all right, so we got Yaya. How about number 2 on your list here?
Number 2 on my list, Jacob Parrish. The reports of Jacob Parrish from everybody has been fantastic. I loved him out of the draft. Guy is a dog. And he's going to allow Tyke to go really predominantly to that safety position. He's going to play nickel. I think he's built for it. And because this team needed some depth at the secondary position, the fact that he's going to play most likely right away is a big tip of the cap to him. But I really believe this kid could be a difference maker for the defense, maybe with a couple of picks here and there. I think he's somebody who isn't afraid to tackle. He can help you in the run game, blitzes, really everything. So I thought about putting Emeka in here as well. We've talked a lot about Emeka, talked about Parish as well. But I really do think that Jacob Parrish is one of those players when you factor in guys that can really improve from last year to this year, make a difference in what those deficiencies were to now. I'm putting Jacob Parrish up there.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about opportunity, right? And Parrish kind of has a better opportunity to be on the field faster than Benjamin Morrison does, and that's something that we've talked about quite a bit. Spoiler alert, I'm going to talk more about Emeka Egbuka on tomorrow's show, probably, if not Fridays, then the beginning of next week. So lots of Egbuka talk coming up on this show. But yeah, I mean, Parrish is he's already started to check all the boxes. We need to see what he does in training camp. We need to see some of those live snaps in preseason and things like that. But, this is a player that has given Todd Bowles more flexibility in his defense and his secondary, right? Because now you have 3 players that can play that nickel corner position. You have 2 guys that can play safety that can also play nickel. So you have all these options now, and it opens things up for Todd Bowles. So I'm excited about Jacob Parrish. I haven't started my quote-unquote film study on him yet. I'm going in order of the picks. But, this is a guy that, as a third-round pick, just like Tyke last year, looks to be in line for a starting job come September.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the rookies who are drafted are going to have an impact on this team. But, I do put I like Benjamin Morrison. Just because I'm not mentioning them doesn't mean I don't like him. But
sure,
I'm really excited about what Jacob Parrish can do. And Morrison probably is a depth piece this year. He'll push Jamel Dean in camp, I'm sure. But I envision him to be the 3rd cornerback on this team. And, Emeka is going to have an impact at the beginning of this year. Then I'm sure when hopefully Chris and everybody are healthy, that we can, slot everybody in their respective spots. So he might actually move into more of like a run blocking, grimy guy type of role. But I think Jacob Parrish consistently from game one to the end is going to have to show up and show out and play a huge role for this team, a la Tyke last year. And so that's what I foresee for him.
All right, well, we are going to round out the top 3 players to be high on and kick off the number 1 player where there are some reservations. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On average, in about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their site. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So on your high list, we have Yaya Diaby. We have rookie Jacob Parrish. Who is the last guy that you are looking to as someone that you're really high on coming into this season?
Here's a hot take for you, Christian Izien. I know he's coming off a pretty significant injury, though it looked like at the end of mandatory minicamp there, he's been cleared. So I do expect him to be out there day one of training camp. And the reason why day one of training camp is going to be very early in the morning at 8:30 is to avoid the storms that you hear above me right now. Crazy times. Welcome to the summer in Tampa. But Izien fits the mold of what Todd Bowles loves to do with his versatility. We saw him play cornerback last year, safety, nickel. He is, maybe there's not a specific spot for him, but there is going to be one because he does so much. And the fact that you can rotate him in there with a lot of other guys, even Tyke and Parish, like there are so many guys on this team. And what I love about this makeup of the defense is theoretically I am curious if Zion is maybe going to move some snaps over to safety just on occasion to screw with people. But for the most part, the cornerbacks will look fairly similar. But everybody else between Winfield, let's say Parrish, let's say Tyke, and what am I blanking in here? Tyke, Winfield, Parrish, and then maybe Izien gets put in there. But regardless, those three can play in any spot, and they can all rotate into different worlds. And so you walk up to the line of scrimmage, you're the quarterback, you got to ID Antoine Winfield Jr. Where is this man? Okay, I found him. All right, now where's the nickel? Wait, the nickel's over there? Okay, so now I got this guy at nickel over here. And so you're a quarterback, you're trying to process, like, what the hell is this? And then all of a sudden, hike, and it shape-shifts into something you're not expecting because they have that versatility. Antoine can run back. This guy can run forward. This guy can move over. So, and that's what I loved about sort of the makeup of this defense. And Izien gives you depth on the versatility of what Bowles wants to do, in that you should still be able to execute your game plan as if nothing happened if one of those guys goes down. Obviously, if Antoine goes down, that's very bad, right? There's only one Antoine Winfield Jr. in this league, but the point is holding your water. And I think Izien is probably a little bit underrated in what he can do, how effective he's been since coming to Tampa Bay as an unrestricted free agent. And I am of the belief he's going to have an impact on this upcoming season. An asterisk to Servassier Dennis, who everybody knows him, I am high on. I do have my injury concerns, but you can go hear my whole Servassier Dennis rant in a previous episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could probably find 3 or 4 times that we've talked about the linebackers and Servassier and Anthony Walker. So, all right, well, again, it's another guy that I really love. I love the pick, and so just quick recap. We're talking, and you went all defense here. You have Yaya Diaby, you have Jacob Parrish, you have Christian Izien as the 3 guys that you are high on heading into 2025. So let's flip the script. Let's talk about the number 1 player that you're looking at where there are some concerns here.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I did this list was 3 guys who were predominantly on the team last year, on the 53-man, who need to fight to stay on this team. So, number 1 on my list, Trey Palmer. There's been rumors about him possibly getting traded. You draft Tez Johnson, you draft Emeka Ibuka. Looks like you're getting squeezed out. So I don't know if Trey's going to make this team. He's going to have to really fight to make this team out of camp because by what the Bucs have done in the draft, it certainly seems like those wide receiver spots are few and far between. And Tez is going to come in, wants to do the punt returning duties. At what point does Trey have a role here? So I certainly think that Trey, who was drafted during the Dave Canales regime and had his best season with Dave Canales, I don't know if he necessarily fits the Liam Cohen, Josh Grizzard type of mold. Nothing against him, but it just, I think – and maybe Grizz will be a little bit different, but Dave, I think, was a little bit more of set up for the deep shot, set up for the big play. Liam was certainly more dink and dunk in the efficiency. It does seem like Grizz is going to try to get a little bit more explosives than what we saw last year. But are you really going to keep a guy in who is not going to be your punt returner on this team as like a wide receiver 5'6"? I don't see it when you got the depth that this team has. So Trey Palmer, number 1, guys who got to show up in training camp to fight for their job. He's at the top of my list.
Yeah, and I was talking about that exact same thing on the Our Lads podcast last week. I mean, how many receivers are they going to keep? 6, maybe 7? Like 7's pushing it a little bit. So you have Mike, Chris, Ibuka, McMillan, Tez. So now you have all the rest of these guys fighting for 1 or 2 spots. You have Sterling Shepard, you have Trey, you have Jarrett, you have
Cameron Johnson.
Yeah, Cam Johnson, Ryan Miller. Like, you have all these other guys that played for this team last year fighting for 1 or 2 spots. And I think you're 100% right, unless Palmer really just is head and shoulders above all those other guys, and it's Baker's bestie Sterling Shepard that's the odd man out, or maybe Tez doesn't quite live up to what the Bucs were hoping he was going to do, so they say, you know what, we're probably better off with Trey. Yeah, there's some tough situations there, and yeah, Palmer has a lot of work to do if he's going to be able to come in and kind of steal that last receiver spot. That's why that competition is going to be the best one to watch. That is going to be the most exciting competition in training camp, because I think you would agree a lot of these positions, as far as starters are concerned, are pretty much set. We're looking at competitions for depth. You might look to the secondary to see if somebody emerges and things kind of shift around over there. But, this receiver battle is going to be one for the ages. All right. Well, we have the last two players that you should temper your expectations about. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, for me, you guys know it's youth sports, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, all your spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you actually start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, even plan those long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, and we just finished talking about Trey Palmer as the first guy on your, well, for lack of a better term, we're going to call it the low list, but it's that definition has been adjusted. But how about the next guy on your list of players that really need to ball out and you're maybe a little concerned about heading into training camp here?
Yeah, I mean, as far as guys who need to fight for their job, Jose Ramirez. This is a guy who we saw amazing things from last preseason. He's been a developmental project. And in year 3, as a guy who has barely played much for this team, like at some point you got to make your way onto the field now. Like, and the way that this roster is looking, there's not much. There's not a lot of spots to give. So at outside linebacker, last year they took 6 guys. We know that Yaya Diaby, Anthony Nelson, Braswell, and David Walker are going to be 5 of them. That leaves Jose Ramirez and Marquise Watts as potentially the other people. But that's not to say that the Bucs also don't steal one of those spots to put it elsewhere for a special teamer. So you got to really, I got to see that Jose is far and away a person who can contribute on Sundays, because, I mean, you can't be – in the NFL, you can't have 3-year projects. They draft him in the 7th round. It was understandable. He was never going to be a thing that rookie season. Last year, you put him on the roster. And for the most part, it was a fairly healthy group out of all the defensive positions, right? I mean, Yaya played for most of the season. Anthony Nelson, Chris Braswell. I mean, we can get into the performance side of things, but the fact that with the performance being what it was, where the team wasn't generating too many sacks on the outside, the fact that Jose couldn't get on the field is a bit concerning. So I need to see a lot from him that shows that, hey, I'm still deserving of a spot on this roster, especially considering 5 spots are already spoken for.
Yeah, and I mean, Jose Ramirez and Marquise Watts, not to kind of lump him in with this, but these are 2 guys that we've been hearing about the organization being high on or having or being really excited about for a couple of years now, and it just has not translated to anything in terms of production on the field. Like you mentioned, he had a really good preseason, but with as beaten up and damaged as this defense was last year, like you said, he couldn't get on the field. So I would say that he certainly is in serious danger of not making the 53-man roster, which is, it hurts Jason's draft stats, I guess you could say. But at the end of the day, if you're not producing, then what's the point in keeping you around? So, yeah, for sure, another guy, especially in a position that wasn't overly impressive last year, to not be able to get that opportunity, I think, kind of spoke volumes about where he is in his trajectory. All right, Evan, the last guy that makes your list here of dudes that need to really step up their game or they're going to be shown the door?
Josh Hayes. And while Josh Hayes has been a special teams ace per se, we learned last year that he is not going to be able to contribute at cornerback. Sorry, that Commanders game, what we saw there, just some of the it's a no for me, dog. So he's a special teamer. We know that. He's exceptional at it. But to keep his job, he's got to really continue to be one of the best special teamers on this team and live up to those expectations. So if any of that falls off, again, they can't. There's a lot of depth on this team. New guys that they've drafted, right? People want to see if Desmond Watson can make the team. Jake Major, Shiloh Sanders. There's some guys who, we heard a little bit actually about J.J. Roberts. So there are some guys on this team who you might want to give a chance to, but these are the guys who need to cling on to their spots. And last year they took 6 cornerbacks: Jamel Dean, Zion McCollum, Kendall Vildor, Benjamin Morrison, Jacob Parrish, and Bryce Hall would make that 6. That's not even counting Tyreek Funderburk, who they also like still. And Vildor, technically, they can part ways with. It wasn't like that deal is going to punish them. But they're going to have to really squeeze you in there. And it's going to be because of special teams. So it's huge camp for Josh Hayes, and somebody who's been in town the past couple of years. If he doesn't have a big training camp, he might be on his way to somebody else.
Yeah, and it's an exercise that you and I are going to have. I don't know, where are we? We're June 25th. So in about a month and a half, you and I are going to be talking about predicting a 53-man roster, and that's the big question. I just mentioned it with receivers. How many guys are they going to keep in the secondary? So that also plays into, you mentioned Tyke Smith and Christian Izien. Those are versatile guys. So are you keeping them as safeties? Are you keeping them as corners? Like where are they going to find that as far as the 53-man? And yeah, Josh Hayes, like you said, special teams, he's great. But when he got his opportunities on the field, when it was him and, the Lot C attendant that they pulled in after, the parking was done because he needed to suit up and play, and you're signing guys off the street, like Josh Hayes was still not impressive. You saw better work out of Tyreek Funderburk. You saw better work out of, some of these other less experienced guys. So, if all you bring, we talk every year, late in the draft, you're looking for those guys that can contribute on special teams. But if all you can contribute is special teams, well, now there's a problem, because when we have to call your number to play defense or to play offense, it becomes a hot mess. So that's going to be a tough road for Josh Hayes to be able to make this team. And I like him, but I need to see the kind of leap out of him that we saw from Zion from year 2 to year 3. If I'm going to be comfortable giving him a roster spot.
Yeah. It's a tall task for him, to say the least. So those are my 3 guys who I think have been on the team for a little bit. Certainly were on the roster last year. And I think actually both of these guys were on the roster the past 2 years, though. Jose Ramirez is more of a practice guy, his rookie season. But, yeah, that's really how I want to attack this list. These are guys who took up a roster spot last year who are on the fence this year.
All right. Well, Evan, what do we have going on over at 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app?
Well, you can head to 10 Tampa Bay Plus and watch the Ultimate Florida Sports Show. I do it with my buddy Chris Porter there in Jacksonville. We talk about all things, Florida sports, obviously, but, right now we're in the quiet time for football. So we have baseball, golf, NBA draft, Panthers winning the Stanley Cup. So we have a lot to break down, a lot of hot topics that we're able to give our opinion on that during our normal sportscast where we have 2.5, 3 minutes that we can't really get into. So I suggest you check that out on the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. You can find that Fire Stick, Roku, and then also you can watch me 6 and 11 o'clock on 10 Tampa Bay as well and see what we got cooking in sports. Otherwise, head to 10tampabay.com and we have plenty there. As I guarantee you, we'll have a story up on the Wander Franco verdict, which will come down Thursday at 3 o'clock, or 3 o'clock ish.
All right. Make sure you are checking all of that out. Please make sure you're following on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at eCloskey WTSP. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to become an insider, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.